I'm Kerrie-Anne, and my business is Pilates at Your Desk, and I've got it here. And I just had this book published yesterday, and it's called Move More at Your Desk. And it's a practical guide, really, of why we should be moving more during the day, how we can move more, and when to remember to do it, and how to remember to do it. Yes. So the why, when, how. And those are the main three questions I answer. Yeah.
Lovely. That is something that many of us need. What brought you to this place? Was this a thing of I've been working with clients and they all need this work, or was it I'm sitting at my desk during COVID more than I've ever sat at my desk before, so I need to save myself in order to save others?
Well, the first one, yes. So it went back. So I've been doing Pilates at Your Desk for about 4 years, and I was teaching prior to that for a number of years. And I think I said to you last time, Martin, I can't remember now, but I had clients coming back every week, and they'd leave the session, they'd be great and really spacious and wonderful, floating through the air, and then they'd come back the next week, oh, my back hurts. I was like, so I put together just a little program of simple movements, really, that they could do, and then those that did it felt better, and those that didn't continued with their little niggles until I persuaded them to do them. So then I started going around offices and so on. This is pre-pandemic, teaching workshops, and then the book came about in the pandemic when one of the publishing companies in the UK, and they're in the US as well, approached me and just asked me if I'd write about it. So I literally did it in a very short space of time. And this is it.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yes,
thank you.
Congratulations. You glazed over something, and people say things, and I always pick up on just the small pieces of it. You said you just started going around to offices and teaching it. How did that come about? Were people starting to ask you to come, or did you have to go knock on doors and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, I'd love to help you guys too?
The latter. So basically what I did was I reached out to everybody I knew and asked them if they would consider having me come in and just do a free workshop. So I did a few of those. And I also brought a photographer friend with me who took some pictures. And then I just started building a reputation like that. So those who liked it, I said, please tell other people. And then just started to collect clients that way. And it grew quite quickly that way, actually. I think doing those initial sort of free classes really helped. And then obviously in the pandemic, because I'd been going into some offices which had international companies, so they would have some people in person but others dialing in, so I'd had that experience of working online to a certain extent. So when the pandemic hit, I was ready to, all of us would just change overnight. But I felt a little bit ready because I'd had that sort of, and I winged it a bit too, but I felt a bit prepared. And then I just had I taught so many online workshops throughout lockdown because lots of people were sat at home, different seats, not doing as much incidental movement and so on. So yeah, so it really took off in lockdown. Yeah.
Nice. So then when you talk about moving more at your desk, are you adding props to it? Are you, your desk could be a prop, I'm sure, but what is it that a person would need to be able to start a really, really meaningful desk work program, other than the book, of course, which I think is super important?
And me teaching them, of course.
Yeah, well, yes, and when you're in person, that's fine, but I'm out here and it's snowing, actually, disgusting. I'm out here in snowy Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I might not be able to get to you. So, if somebody gets your book, I can already tell you what some of my clients would say. It needs to be simple. I don't want to be doing a whole lot of it. Do I have to buy something other than the book? So no. How do you do that? How do you satisfy those objections?
So you don't need to buy anything. You can wear any clothes. It's very simple. You just need to sit on your chair. And it's, I try to, so it's super simple stuff like side bending, keeping both sit bones down, rotating, flexing your spine, I went the other way, didn't I? extending, flexing, hip hinges, squatting up and down from your chair, seated lunges. So no props at all in this. Although that said, I do have a section in there which is all about what to do when you're working from home. And I've got I've got a section which is called Get Your Tins Out. So using tins of beans or whatever you've got in your cupboard as or weights if you've got them, but just something like that to add a little bit of variation to it. Dressing gown cord, I trained with Fletcher Pilates, so some Fletcher towel stuff. So I've got a dressing gown cord in there or a dog lead or whatever you might have to do some shoulder stuff. And what else? That's pretty much it in the book. But when I use like the chair or the desk to do planks, up stretch, stuff like that. Load.
Nice. Just like that.
Yeah. So it's basically no props, but you can have them if you want them.
Excellent.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. And I think that, you know, the key in being movement teachers is consistency, right? So like, it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. It just has to be something that they can look at and say, okay, that's sustainable. Okay, I could do that. Yeah, I could probably do that a couple times a week. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like, it really is a real little threshold if we want to get people to be consistent with their movement practice.
Yeah, and I think it's about making it so accessible with the simplicity of it, I suppose,
Yes.
but also making it as easy as possible to do, which I guess is almost one and the same thing, but making sure that you don't need to get changed out of your work gear to do it. You can just do it in whatever clothes you're in. You don't need a mat because you can sit on your chair or stand up. So those things as well. But also I think one of the messages that I try to really get across in there is that every minute counts. So to try and break down this barrier of compartmentalizing, we talked about this before, I think last time, exercise and work. So, you know, if you've got a minute between a meeting, you can do a few moves rather than thinking, oh, this isn't time for movement because I move when I'm wearing my gym gear and I've got an hour or 30 minutes or whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah. I try to instill in my students that, you know, if we're only seeing each other twice a week for an hour each time, you've got to supplement that with something, but it doesn't have to be a marathon.
Right.
5 minutes here and there is
Exactly.
actually, I mean, it does have a cumulative effect.
Absolutely. And that's basically the premise of all of the stuff that I'm sort of putting out there. It's just like, you know, I Misty, when you asked before about the reason for starting it, what I didn't say was my background was I worked at a desk for like 10 years and I had literally a really long shopping list of constant aches and pains. So I think, you know, and yes, okay, I will get down on the mat, or until a few weeks ago I had a reformer here. I've got various bits and bobs and I'll do my workouts. But most of the time I'm just doing the stuff that I teach in the book, really. So, you know, and I don't have those pains anymore. So, and it brings, even just those little bits of movement, as you know, bring about better body awareness. So, you know, how you're more aware of how you're moving through space, or when you're being still, you're more conscious of how your body's positioned above the ground and so on.
Yeah.
And more well-being too. The longer I sit in this chair, the nastier I get. So, you know, if I'm in this chair for 10 hours, by the end of the day, you know, I pity the last call. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So just that moving, that little bit of mana just gives me a little bit more patience to get through my day.
Yes.
Exactly.
Here's a comment here from Ali just came through. I'm always trying to get people to take breaks if they're sitting a lot. Get out of static positions. What did people notice most from feeling better? Feeling far better. I bet they have better focus and production and productivity. Absolutely. And both of you were speaking to kind of the positive. And last time, Misty, we were joking about how it's in the same way you implied as you cue to the positive. We're not sitting here saying, do this, move at your desk because sitting is the next smoking. Do this because it's going to hurt this. Do this because you're going to die in 3 years if you don't. Like, there's a sense of like, this is how it's going to enhance your life, instead of you better start moving or else, in the way that it's being sold, which I like.
I feel like we're over the fire and brimstone. I think we're tired of being told that if you don't do this, the sky will fall.
Yeah,
It's not
absolutely.
motivating anymore. I, for one, am looking for the positive effect of what's going to happen in my body. And that is way more motivating than the negative. The negative, I'm kind of like, oh, yeah, well, I don't care.
Yeah,
When you give me that positive. Yeah, exactly. It's my natural subversive tendency.
Me too.
But when you say, you know what, you're going to be able to move better, you're going to be able to achieve your seated posture for longer without pain, yeah, that's something that I'm going to pursue, because that's something that I can, in my mind's eye, see the benefit and interpret what that would be like. Whereas the negative is just like, I'm going to either prove you wrong or die trying.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the negative...
Do Pilates or die, right?
Oh,
yes.
Yes.
I think sometimes the negative can feel quite arbitrary as well, because the negative is like long term. So it's not just like you're like, no, sorry, but I'm the rebel here. But it's like, okay, but like that might not happen, and that's way in the future. So, but we can feel, like, you can feel if you've got tension in your body. You can feel if your back hurts. And I think something which I also, and I'm sure you guys to do too through your work, is to get people to recognize when things don't quite feel right, because I think we've normalized this idea of, oh, I've got an achy back, but that's fine. So
yes,
like, so that is the stuff that I sort of go about trying to unpick a bit, shine light on it, because actually you shouldn't feel like that. So and if we can change the narrative around that, then that gives us more hope for the positive reinforcement stuff, because then people are like, okay, well, it shouldn't be like that. It's not because I'm getting old or because I sit at a desk all day, because you can do stuff to mitigate it.
And P.S., teachers on the call, that means you too. How many times do we sit and let something fester and fester?
Yeah.
Because, oh, well, I'll fix it later. I know what I'm doing. I've got the time. My clients need me. The wind's blowing from the east today, whatever it is. And we're just not giving our own bodies that kind of love and care that we are demanding our students give to themselves.
I think also there's a bit of shame around that maybe as well, because I think as teachers, we don't want to admit perhaps that we have aches and pains or something like this. This is what I hear from a lot of friends and colleagues. It's because it's like, well, you shouldn't have aches and pains because you teach movement. And I think there's like also, it's not a bad thing to have. In fact, you just got to do the work to try and help yourself to get better.
Normalizing it, like you said, and change the narrative is so key, right?
Yeah.
And it's so funny, my client kind of got me on that the other day. I was talking about, there's a new eye place like 2 doors down. So I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I'll go check it out, whatever. And he's like, well, when's the last time you went for an eye exam? I was like, never. Like, my eyes are fine. He's like, but you spend your day taking care of people's bodies all day and you haven't taken care of your eyes? It's like, set that appointment, thanks. Right? Like,
you're like, shame.
Right. Walk of shame, 2 doors down. It's true, right? Like, I mean, like we put ourselves last. There's a badge of honor to say, I have this pain, I'm just working through it. It's like saying we're busy. Oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. It's like, well, why don't you stop? Why don't you prioritize? Why don't you focus on something else? We can change the narrative instead of making ourselves a martyr in these small ways with the things that we do.
Yeah.
And the little things are just as important for us.
Yeah.
As they are for everybody else. I know what it's like to have clients back to back, 9 or 10 in a row, and be like, well, I know that my reformer is right there, but I'm just going to have some snacks. Maybe I can snack while I'm on the reformer.
Yeah.
But that
just clean it up.
Yes, that movement is where I need to be. So I really think that this book is a great thing for movement people as well. We can't leave ourselves out of the equation.
I hope so.
it's good, you know, just for us. Snacks are important. I was saying, for the record, um, the and for us as you know, movement teachers to have that book too, it like is one of those things where it's like, here, take this with you, take it, you know, and you know what I mean. Like it becomes a resource for us all, right? Like, you know, I'm sure it just helps the life hack of having that for ourselves. So.
Yeah, I think so. And it's been really nice actually, because loads of teachers yesterday were sharing pictures on their stories of them with the book. So I think that teachers are buying it, and even if it's just as a resource to then promote to their clients, I mean, that's amazing, because that means that more people will have it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were talking last time, and I made the title for today, the niche within the niche. Um, for those who are out there watching this, and you are a teacher and you're working your 9, 10 clients back to back, but then you also have this idea to do something else or to focus on something else. There's a real talk that we had last time, Kerrie-Anne, just about how hard it was to actually get the book out. So can you just talk about the process of how it came, like besides getting the invite to actually write, just the process of getting to making this book and how that's been and how you balance that out?
Yeah, so I think because I've been teaching the workshops for quite some time, I had a structure in my mind already in terms of what it would look like in parts. And also, in order to get it signed off by the publishing company, I had to produce a structure. So I already had a framework for writing it. But at that point, when I was doing it, we just moved house from London to the countryside. My daughter was at a new school, you know, all the life stuff that comes in.
Mm.
And then I was teaching loads because I was doing all these online workshops. So I was literally writing it between lessons, really. I'm quite strict about when I go to bed because I have to wake up really early. So that's one thing that doesn't change. So I was literally just filling in my gaps, which would normally be snack breaks. But it was more like this. Well, on the computer. So
I can relate.
Yes.
But what was really great was that then I got to live what I was writing, because I was sitting down way more than usual. But and you know, it was so funny how quickly I reverted to my old self. Sat like, I think I used this analogy last time, a bit like a pretzel with my legs round like that and a croissant in the top bit of my body. But you know what, I was like, hang on a minute, you're writing this, you shouldn't be sat like that, you should be moving more, you're actually writing it right now.
Right.
So that was like, and then once I'd made this commitment with myself, actually, you're not going to break your own rules here. And then it became easier. Is that what you meant, Martin, in terms of the process?
Yeah, the process. I like that. Like, I mean, that work-life balance, right? Like, how do we cram these things in? I think it's easy. They always say, like, you know, like, quitting is not an option, right? Like, you have this vision, you got to go with it. And I was like, quitting is the most readily available option. Like, you could stop whenever you like because there's so many temptations to stop.
Yeah.
How do we push through?
Yeah. So I think my work style, I suppose is the right term, is I always like to be finished before a deadline, because it makes me too stressed otherwise. So actually I'm quite lucky in that sense, because that meant that I was always ahead of the next stage. So I was creating some, what do you call it, some slack, so that if I did have those moments where I was like, actually, I just don't want to do this today. I mean, giving up entirely wasn't an option because I'd signed a contract and so on. So, you know, I had some like legal.
That's a fire under your
legal
belly.
motivation.
So,
yes.
there was that. But in terms of, you know, how do you organize yourself to motivate yourself? I had quite a lot of slack. So if there were times where I was just like, no, it's not happening, then I could bunk off from my own work. And that was okay. But I think, yeah, my husband has the opposite way of doing things. He's a last minute kind of guy. So I'm not sure how that would have gone for him. He'd probably be right at the day, busting it out.
I was waiting for that hand.
There's Misty.
100%. You know what? And if I actually do, because I've really tried hard to change this habit in myself, if I start early, I will tear the project up and start again like 3 days before.
You're right.
It's this weird tick that I have, and I feel like my creativity is best when the building is burning.
At gunpoint.
But that's fine.
At gunpoint.
That works for you. It's fine. Like my husband's the
Tied to
same.
the train.
My husband will go to the cinema, and I'm like, aren't you worried that you've got something that's doing? Yeah, but I can't figure it out right now. And then he's like in work
because
he
the
does
thoughts
a great job.
happen when you're at the cinema. Silly. It's like, oh, this movie is really great. Oh,
Is that yeah?
I mean, I'm right there with your husband. I like the way he thinks. He must be a bright guy.
Quick show of hands in the chat if you're in Camp Misty, like last seconds, midnight hour.
Lastminute.com.
Yeah, for real. No, I'm like you, Kerrie. Like I try and get stuff done. I'll do something, put it down, and pick it up the day before just to edit it, so it's like it's done, clear my head, and come back to it. Instead of like, oh, Allie is like, nah.
So that's actually my sister there, Steph Shibbo. She's in your camp, Misty, as well, I think. Yeah, I think that's why she's doing that thing. But
yeah, I can't see the chat anymore, but I feel
show of hands
because
yes, Karen's Pilates corner. Yes.
Like I said, I've tried to change it, and it always ends up being more work.
Well, I mean, if it works for you, then you don't need to change it.
Oh no, I think I like to change it to create more work, to make it more stressful. I don't know. Like I said, it's a tick. I will own that I'm a little bit special in my thinking.
Well, you're not that special because Love Movement Pilates, Steph, and then Rosie Pierce right after are like me.
Rosie,
thanks, friends.
Corner, me. Yeah, you can start your support group on Monday.
Funnily enough, Rosie and Stephanie are actually best friends with each other. That's my sister and her best friend.
Oh, there you go.
Nice. See, we hang in clusters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Around efficient people.
Well, once we get around to it.
Well, what's Glenn like then, too, Misty? Is Glenn the opposite, or is he like?
Glenn is actually worse than I am.
No.
So, like, if something's due the next day at 9 a.m., I'll have it done by 6 p.m. the day before. Yeah. At 6 p.m. the day before, he is running around like a bat out of hell trying to figure out how to get started. Every project he starts by him cleaning his office, which means he doesn't clean his office until it's time for a project to start.
Right.
Which means I walk around like this at the mere prospect of looking at the office. But it's a disaster. And he's that way with everything. Going to the airport, I'm like, what do you mean you're gonna miss the flight? Like, how does this happen? He's like, well, I just left. I'm like, we're an hour from the airport. What do you mean you left now? And the plane leaves in 2 hours. But the man also has a very, very shiny golden horseshoe implanted someplace particularly helpful.
Right.
He sounds exactly like my husband. Exactly the same. We've missed so many flights. So many.
I will not. I have actually left for the airport without him.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
One step
I
ahead.
will not. And I'm not going to argue the whole way there either. So I'll be like, bye. And then he'll get it together or not. See ya. Yeah. What to do? I have my own shit.
Yes. And Karen Pilates says, I like to think of it as time management. If you wait till the last minute, it takes a lot less time.
And there's a lot less to manage because, I mean, you've got to stay hyper-focused. You can't let anything else in. So
I'm feeling like the stress. Like I feel like my.
I know. I've kind of gone like this.
Yeah.
You are both looking a little bit more tense than before.
I need some Pilates just talking about. Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to do some power posing.
Yeah. If only there was a book I could use while I'm sitting here that could just help me to get some of this tension?
Oh yes, hang on.
Whatever
hang on.
could
Would
this
you like
book
me to
be?
read something? No, I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
yes. Story time.
Just right there in the right spot.
I know. Meanwhile, Ali Green said, I never want to travel with Glenn. I would have a heart attack.
Oh, Allie Green, knowing you as I do, you would absolutely have a heart attack, and he would not have the time to call 911 for you. So you would just be dead. I'm sorry, Dad. Don't do it.
Sorry, Ali Green.
I mean, love you, but don't travel with my partner. It's not pretty. He's a lovely man, though. He really is. Like, when he's not making me crazy. So can we talk really quick about the process again? Because knowing that you're a hyper-organized person when it comes to your process, how long did it take you to actually put the book together in itself? And what did that look like in dealing with editors and publishers and all of that?
So in terms of the writing itself, do you know what, Misty? I'm going to try my best to remember, but I might be a bit like off on the amount of time. But I think in my brain, it took me about from January, and I handed in the finished transcripts, is that what you call it? At the beginning of June. So that's 5 months, is it? 5 months? But I was sending in sort of iterations of that in between. So there were a few rounds. The lovely lady who commissioned me to do it, Anya, she's actually a Pilates teacher, a movement teacher as well in the UK. Cool. She left to go to another job halfway through, so she was no longer my editor. So I got a new editor halfway through called Brittany, who was absolutely lovely as well. And actually, it was so funny because she said to me, "You're much nicer when I see you on screen than you are in email." because I've got such an abrupt email tone, and I'm so like no messing about. It's like and so I felt so awful because she was just like, yeah, you do come across a bit harsh. I was like, oh my god, I totally can see that because I am a bit like that.
Just to the point.
So yeah, to the point. I'm very direct. There's no messing around. So
I think that's a great style of email writing, personally. Go for it.
It is, but you don't want people to be scared of you, do you?
I know, but you know what? I hate when I get those emails and I'm like, oh no, this is like an entire made for the bathroom read right here.
Yeah.
It's going to be
an
hour. Like, it's terrible. I don't want it. Give me the point. Give me the actionable items and send me on my way.
Yeah, I feel like that. And I think actually that's how I've written the book as well. So it's a bit like with a few jokes because, well, I thought if you're just talking, if you're just like, right, put your hands behind your head, press your head back into your hands or whatever it is, kind of a bit dull. So I had to throw a few gags in there to keep my voice, my really funny voice.
Yeah.
But it's I tried to make it super simple and just to the point rather than lots of waffling like I'm doing now.
Well, we're having a conversation.
We're having a
That's
conversation.
Totally
it would be a bit strange if I didn't waffle the conversation.
I think we would have been done like 40 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So do you have to do a tour now? Do you have to go is there any kind of speaking circuit, anything going on with it? Or are you kind of just going to manufacture that for yourself in terms of getting the book out?
I think I'm going to try and manufacture that myself. I've got a party happening. Shame you're not in London next week because I've got to.
Let's go, Martin.
Let's do it.
Let's just come. Yeah, just come. Just don't bring Glenn because I don't want you missing your flight.
Yeah.
So I've got a book launch event with friends and family, and then some people who are like press and stuff like that. So that will be really nice. And then I'm hoping to do some collaborations with complimentary brands and stuff coming up. But I haven't actually got that far in organising anything specifically because I think there's just such a is such a build up. It's been such a build up to getting the book out, and I've been doing lots and lots of interviews with newspapers and magazines and so on. And with the normal teaching schedule as well, I just haven't really had that much extra time to plan stuff. But it'd be really nice to figure some stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When do you stop and just soak in the fact that you wrote a book?
I know. Well, you're funny you say that, because Misty, I'm going to Spain. Yeah. I'm going to Valencia in April, and I've never been to Valencia,
nice.
but I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I also really like Barcelona. One of my friends lives there, but I'm going to go to Valencia, and I'm going to not take my phone with me, actually, because sometimes I do that because it stops.
Lovely.
Because that's the way of stopping. So I'm just going to leave it, and then, well, you know, give my sister and my mum and dad and stuff. Well, they've got Tim's number anyway, so that's fine. And then just be really just being present in Valencia with my family. Because then I think, do you know what, actually, I did have a moment of soaking it in the other day. So, because my daughter went to school on World Book Day dressed as me. It's really cute. And it was so cute. And when she got back, some kids in the school, and lots of her friends have been really nice to her, but there were others who were a bit like, well, why would you go as your mum? That's weird. Da, da, da. And she said to me, I might cry if I say this, I'll try not to, but I might. She said to me that she was just really proud. And because she said that, and it made me think, oh shit, yeah, I've actually done this, you know. But it was the first moment where I actually was like, whoa. Because I'm always, because of this approach to life, getting on to the next thing, doing things quickly, I don't have time to I guess, be celebrating my successes. So it was a moment where I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I've actually done this. And I want there to be a bigger moment, because otherwise I'm just going to be, you know, steamrolling into the next thing. So
the next thing.
Yeah.
Right. That's brilliant.
Yeah, we're celebrating you now.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, what an honor for your little one to recognize you in that way.
So sweet. So lovely.
Yeah. I have a son. He says, That's it.
Well,
he's 16.
He's taking it in.
Use words.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Definitely. But prior to this, my sister who's on here before, she might still be on here. She I said last time, so she works for a charity, and it's a cancer charity. And my daughter would quite often tell people, my sister does something. So my auntie is my hero. She does really good things for people. And then Emma Bray, who's one of my good friends, she's a Pilates teacher. And do you know Emma?
I love Emma. Yeah.
So Emma's Ivy said this to Emma, and Emma said to Ivy, but what about your mummy? She helps people every day. And Ivy said, she just moves them around. So to go from that to wanting to dress up at World Book Day was it was a good.
Nice. you have her
definitely up leveling for sure.
Up leveling.
Nice.
Yeah.
Too funny. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. There we go. Pilates with Kerrie saying, get in touch if you venture up to Edinburgh.
Oh, I definitely will. My dad's from just outside Glasgow, actually, so he's got a very broad Scottish accent, and yeah, he's from outside Glasgow, a place called Greenock. So I will be visiting Scotland again soon, I'm sure, because he turns 70 in May, and I think that's where he wants to have his birthday. So yeah, I'll be able to come to Edinburgh, Kerrie.
Nice. So Kerrie, when we were talking about last time about movement and just kind of on the Pilates side of things, so just how we do our work, and part of the conversation I had yesterday was about how Nanette, that was the third person. I was trying to remember who the third person was that came on yesterday. So Esprit Pilates in Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
So Nanette and I were just talking about how we're good at what we do, and just sitting in the fact that we've invested in our education, we've invested in helping people, they're appreciative of what we do, and we're making a difference in people's lives. So there's a sense of us just being good at what we do. And you were saying that when you were working your other gig before, and then you got into Pilates, between your passion for theater and just your fascination with people, that you just kind of had like an intuition. And you know what I'm saying? So can you just talk about just that, the sense of just understanding that this is something that I can do, this is something that I'm good at, this is something I enjoy doing?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty surprised by it, to be honest, especially because I would say, you know, so I realized this when I was doing my training program and I started teaching case studies, and I was thinking, your legs positioned like that, is that because you do this? And then the person say, yeah. And then I just, you know, rolling with it, seeing, and then eventually I was like, whoa, I know quite a lot of things about this, about bodies and movement. How on earth do I know this stuff? Because at that point, my own movement was like, you know, way far away from where it is now. Like, you know, I thought that my ego was telling me I was way better than I was, but I actually was really struggling with doing the movement. But the thing that I didn't struggle with was the teaching it. And, you know, I've come a long way from that point because I've practiced and done lots of movement myself now. So it's maybe a bit more on par, but yeah, there was this kind of like, and I still think every day, well, maybe this is just a fluke. Maybe this is just, and I've got, you know, I'll speak to friends who are really into sort of way more into the anatomy stuff than I am, and I'll verify things with them, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness, thank goodness. I wasn't wrong.
Guess correctly. Yes.
Because I just can't quite believe, like, I'm just like astounded really that but I must have picked it up from somewhere, so I must have read it, I must have learned it, but I'm still not quite, you know, I don't know, do you guys feel like that?
So I love that we're having this conversation. I hope Allie Green is still on, because Allie and I talk about this all the time, well, in parts, but I think that there are people who see movement in a way that is, it still honors, but is removed from that whole anatomical, biomechanical approach. And yet they get it right because it does make sense in terms of what they see happening, what the shared experience is with the client, etc. I actually prefer to teach more from that intuitive perspective. If we have to have the anatomy conversation, let's do it. And I definitely share that stuff with my clients because I want them to feel comfortable if they have to go in to see a physician or whatever it is, that I want them to know that they can kind of stand up and challenge things or ask better questions, because we all know, at least in the States, you only get 7 minutes with the doctor. So if you go in locked and loaded with more information, they're more likely to give you more time. But I think that a lot of the actual essence of movement when we're teaching is lost if we're so wrapped up in the, I need to know every single muscle, ligament, tendon. And again, we can't call it mind-body movement if we're only teaching it from the hard brain.
Exactly, yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, it's well said. Yeah, and Misty, I know that you're like that. I remember one of my first conversations with you, and we got into a conversation about like who you're most passionate about working with. And even though it was like that whole kind of who's your ideal client type thing, just the way you talked about people and their movement and what excites you about their movement and all those different things, it wasn't an anatomical conversation as much as a freedom of movement and just an intelligent movement kind of dialogue.
Yeah,
right?
and I think that's what keeps me interested about this work, is that there's no real hard and true answers.
Yeah, exactly.
Because everybody's body is different. The mindset that they bring is different every day. If it was very rigid and stayed, I wouldn't still be here. My brain gets bored quickly.
Same.
Yeah. And also, we're teaching people. We're not teaching diagrams and books, right?
Right.
It's true. I think that, you know, like, you can provide a framework for, this is how you can move your body in various different ways, and if you do these things, then you've got more chance of feeling okay. And then the interest, so you've got that framework for movement and so on, and then you've got the stuff which is really interesting, which is when someone comes in and they're like, oh, I've got this real big pain in the side of my glutes. I think it might be sciatica, or it's got like someone coming in and they're like this, and you're like, oh yes, this is so exciting. Woo, woo.
They're like, why are you so happy that I'm hurt right now?
And they're like, my clients know I'm gonna be so happy when they come with something.
Yeah. I had oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's what keeps it interesting, the job, because there's nothing for me. It's not about reading a script. I mean, I would have been done, after a month if that was the case.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's yeah.
We both would have checked out a long time ago.
No.
Yeah. There's my kids. I got this like their first iPods when they were really young. And on the back of it, I got inscribed a little saying I found somewhere that says, "Wisdom begins with wonder." And just hearing our conversation right now, it kind of brought me back to that moment of like, I want them to just like, I wonder what happens when you do this. Wonder what this is. And as you ask and start with wonder, then you acquire the wisdom that makes you a good teacher. Because like, okay, this person comes in with this injury. I wonder how we could, what would happen if we did this? I wonder, instead of saying anatomically, we need to do this, this, and this, we need to get this to activate. It's like, can you turn your foot like this and try that again? Wow, that works. Okay, let's stay. And then then we go, right? So there's a sense of that wisdom beginning with wonder.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good.
I don't think you could be a good teacher overall if you aren't curious. And again, it's that idea of the full stop, where I've gotten to the pinnacle. It's as far as I'm going to go. We wouldn't have airplanes, we wouldn't have telephones, we certainly wouldn't have many of the things that are continuing to develop as we are right now if we just stopped with the pen and paper. I think the same thing holds true for what we do in movement. What we have is this amazing tool that is Pilates, but it has legs. I mean, there are people that say no, and then there are people that say that you have to do it the original way or else, burn you at the stake. But there are others that say you can take it farther as long as you remember where you started from. And I think that's where I like to function.
So you'd rather be a witch, is what you're saying.
I personally love witches.
Yeah, I'm a witch.
That's right. 100%. 100%.
Same here, yeah. I love, like, obviously Pilates gives you this, again, back to the framework and the tools that we're speaking the same language. It's amazing, but if you stick with the script, then you're fairly limited, really, because not everybody is going to be able to merge into that lane. So you've got to be flexible. You've got to figure out what works best for the bodies in the case of a group in front of you. And even in like these workshops that I teach, sometimes you have like two people with their screens on. They'll be sat very differently. One might be like this, and it's about being able to read what's going on in the room and then delivering based on what you see. If I just stuck to my right, it just wouldn't be enjoyable for them. They'd leave with feeling rubbish.
Right.
And how enjoyable would it be for you? Wouldn't you be like,
that's the other part.
Time I've taught this week.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be falling asleep in the middle.
Oh, absolutely.
Am I done yet?
Exactly.
Well, and that's full circle to the book. I think that's part of it. Like when you're teaching people and then they have no agency to do something until the next time you teach them, that kills me too. I'm like, why am I teaching you the exact same exercise the exact same way again? Like if you just own this for a few days, then we'd be able to progress on, towards some of your goals. So help me help you in that sense, right? And there's a comment here from Ali, which tied back into what we were saying earlier about that wonder and curiosity, is that it also invites the person into their own process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really important, because how are you supposed to make long-term changes if you're not taking responsibility for your own staff? So, and that's like, you know, and that is something which I guess has become more possible with this working in this way. So when you're teaching online, because you're not there with your hands and so on. So, you know, I'm sure you guys do the same. I'm a big one for getting people to use their own hands. So, you know, if you want to move from a particular body part, sticking your hand there, feeling it, figuring out how that feels in the body, rather than me having my hands there or whatever.
Yes.
I also think that being in people's homes in this way puts you in their home.
Yeah.
So then when they walk past that chair, it's like, oh, Kerrie-Anne told me I needed to do X. Whereas when they walk out of the studio, they may not think about it again until they drive past it or, you know, return for their next class.
Exactly.
So, you know, I think that there's the mindset out there, I think, in the teaching community that people who don't do their homework aren't committed. And I don't necessarily think that that's the case.
No.
I think that the motivation may be different. And I think that the mindset may be different. So how do we work against those, rather than saying, oh, well, I'm not going to give them anything else because, hey, they're not doing what I gave them before. It's how can I get them to remember? The biggest compliment I get is when my clients are at, say, the shoe store, and they're like, I remember what you said about how I walk. And so I asked the guy at the shoe store what shoes would help me work on my gait, or whatever it is. They took me with them. They were able to recall me. And sometimes that's better than giving homework, because they may be working on things subconsciously that they're not even telling you about, because it's so back brain that they're not even thinking about it.
Completely. Yeah. Yes to all of that.
Yes to all of that.
Guys, I'm really sorry, but I've got a client in 1 minute.
Go for it. Can you just show the book
okay.
one more time?
One more time. But I'd love to do this again, because I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Okay. I'm smiling.
Same here. Thank you.
I should hold
it's
one.
so
I'm
nice
gonna do a
to
little
meet
quick
you.
screenshot.
You too.
Hold the book up again.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Hey. All right, cool. Thank you so much. We'll message you after.
Congratulations.
Yes, congrats.